Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always. What are we diving into today?
Well, you guys have sent in a ton of articles all about why the ocean is salty. Seems like we've got some curious listeners out there.
It's one of those questions, isn't it? Seems like it should have a simple answer.
Yeah.
But the more you think about it...
It's like, wait, why the ocean's salty?
Exactly. And the answer is surprisingly complex.
Yeah, I've definitely been swimming in the ocean, tasted that salt water. But where's it all coming from?
Well, a lot of people think it's all about rivers.
Right, like rivers flow into the ocean, rivers carry dirt and stuff. So, mystery solved.
Not quite. See, rivers are actually freshwater. It's a bit of a head scratcher.
Okay, so how do we get from freshwater rivers to a salty ocean?
Well, think about this. Just in the U.S., rivers dump a massive amount of dissolved solids into the ocean every year.
How much are we talking?
Try 225 million tons.
Whoa. Okay, so that's a lot of basically dissolved rock. Right?
Exactly. But here's the thing. Rivers aren't salty. So where's all that dissolved rock going?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. If all that rock is going into the rivers, shouldn't they be salty too?
It's all about the constant cycle of fresh water. Rain falls, snow melts, and it keeps replenishing the rivers, diluting the mineral content. The ocean, on the other hand...
It's like the ocean never gets a fresh batch of water.
Pretty much. All those dissolved minerals, especially salt, have been accumulating for millions and millions of years.
So the ocean is kind of like a giant collecting basin.
Exactly. And over millions of years, all those dissolved minerals, especially salt, make the ocean salty.
That makes a lot more sense. But you keep saying minerals. Specifically, what kind of minerals are we talking about here?
Well, it's not exactly a rainbow of exotic stuff, if that's what you're thinking. Over 90% of the salt in the ocean is good old sodium chloride.
Wait, so you're telling me the ocean is basically just table salt?
Pretty much. There are other elements in there. But yeah, sodium chloride is the main ingredient. And it sticks around longer than a lot of other stuff.
What do you mean?
A lot of marine life uses other minerals, so they don't just build up like the sodium chloride does.
So it's not just rivers bringing in the salt, it's that the salt stays there.
You got it. It makes a huge difference over millions of years. To give you an idea of how much salt we're talking about, imagine we could take all the salt out of the ocean and spread it out evenly over all the land on Earth. We'd be looking at a layer of salt over 500 feet thick.
500 feet? That's like taller than a football field is long. That's wild.
Right, and that's not even the whole story. It turns out rivers aren't the only source of the ocean's salt.
Wait, really? I thought we had it all figured out. What else is there?
We've got to go deeper, literally, down to the ocean floor.
The ocean floor. Okay, now you're speaking my language. This is where it gets really cool.
Right, we're going deep sea. So picture this. You're exploring the ocean floor, miles below the surface. It's dark, eerie.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And suddenly you come across what looks like an underwater chimney, and it's spewing these plumes of superheated fluid.
Okay, that sounds kind of ominous. What is that? Some kind of deep sea volcano?
That's a hydrothermal vent. Basically, a crack in the Earth's crust where seawater seeps in, gets superheated by the Earth's internal heat, and then blasts back out.
Like a geyser, but underwater.
Exactly. And get this, when that water comes back out, it's carrying a whole cocktail of dissolved minerals.
Including salt.
You guessed it. Sodium chloride coming right up, straight from the Earth's core. It's wild.
So the ocean is getting a salt delivery from below, too, not just rivers.
Exactly. It's a two-pronged attack, or maybe a two-sided gift, depending on how you look at it. But it makes you wonder.
What's that?
If salt is constantly being added to the ocean from rivers and from these hydrothermal vents, shouldn't it be getting saltier over time?
That's a good point. It's not like the ocean has a salt drain. Right?
Well, not exactly a drain, but that's where things get really elegant. The ocean is constantly working to maintain a balance, a steady state.
Wait, so you're saying that as much salt as is coming in is also going out somehow?
You got it. It's like a perfectly choreographed dance. Some of the salt gets deposited onto the ocean floor as sediment. Some gets used by marine organisms.
Okay, I can see how that would take some salt out of the equation.
And even a tiny bit gets ejected back into the atmosphere through sea spray. It all balances out over time.
That's incredible. So even though it seems chaotic, the ocean knows how to keep its salt levels in check.
Exactly. It's a beautiful example of how natural systems strive for balance. But of course, there are always exceptions to the rule.
Oh, like what?
Well, think about places like the Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea. Now, that's a place I'd love to see someday. You see those photos, people just floating on the surface like they're weightless?
It's a pretty unique place, yeah. And that floating thing, That's because the Dead Sea is what we call hypersaline. Basically, it's way saltier than the ocean.
Way saltier. How's that even possible?
Well, it's kind of landlocked, so there's not a lot of fresh water flowing in. And on top of that, it gets a ton of evaporation, so the salt just keeps getting more concentrated.
One of the articles I was looking at had a picture of another hypersaline Lake Retba in Senegal. Have you heard it?
Oh, yeah, Lake Retba. It's amazing. The water is this vibrant pink color.
Yeah. The pictures look surreal. What makes it pink? Is it the salt?
It's actually algae. Certain types of algae thrive in that super salty water, and they give the lake that pink hue.
That's incredible. But back to the floating thing for a second. You're saying that's because of the salt.
Exactly. The more salt there is in water, the denser it becomes. And the denser the water, the more buoyant we are. That's why you can just effortlessly bob around in the Dead Sea.
So the saltier the water, the easier it is to float. That's pretty cool. Though I guess too much salt can't be a good thing, right?
You're right, it's all about balance. Even a small change in salinity can have a big impact on the ecosystem. Too much salt and things can't survive. Too little and it throws everything off.
Which brings us to another big topic, climate change. That's got to be messing with the ocean's salinity, isn't it?
You bet. With glaciers and ice caps melting at an alarming rate, a massive amount of fresh water is pouring into the ocean.
And diluting the salt water.
Precisely. And that can disrupt those delicate ocean currents we talked about, the ones that regulate global climate patterns. It's a big deal.
So we're talking about a domino effect.
Yeah.
Melting ice, changing ocean salinity, shifting currents, and ultimately messing with the entire climate.
That's the gist of it. It's one of the many ways climate change is impacting our planet's delicate systems.
It's a lot to take in. But man, it's fascinating stuff. We started out with a simple question about why the ocean is salty, and look where we ended up.
Right. It just goes to show sometimes the simplest questions have the most complex and fascinating answers.
Totally. And it's a good reminder that everything is connected. The ocean, the climate, even a pinch of salt in your kitchen.
Absolutely. It's all part of this incredible, intricate web we call Earth.
Well said. I think that's about all the time we have for this deep dive. But before we go, here's something to think about. What if, by some crazy twist of fate, the ocean lost all its salt? What would happen to our planet? It's a mind-boggling thought, and one we'll leave you with for today. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive.